My name's Olivia Chen. I'm a 35-year-old corporate lawyer, happily married to Mark, with a 5-year-old daughter, Emily. To outsiders, we look like the ideal suburban family. I've put in countless hours balancing my career and family, and I thought I was doing a pretty good job. Mark, my husband, is a successful sales executive. Charming, charismatic, the whole package. We met in college and married soon after graduation. Life seemed perfect at first. But lately, Mark's behavior has changed. He's become subtly controlling, asking where I've been, who I'm talking to. I brushed it off as work stress, but the nagging feeling lingered. Then there are my in-laws, Robert and Linda. They've never approved of me working full-time. Last Thanksgiving, Linda looked at me pointedly and said, "Olivia, don't you think Emily needs her mother at home more?" I nearly choked on my turkey. "Emily's doing great, Linda. She's top of her class and loves her after-school activities," I replied, keeping my voice steady. But she pressed on. "Well, I just think children need a strong maternal presence." Mark interjected, "Mom, we've talked about this. Olivia's career is important to her." I shot him a grateful look, but couldn't help noticing how he phrased it, to her instead of to us. My best friend and colleague Jessica has raised concerns about Mark. "Liv, are you sure everything's okay at home?" she asked, her brows furrowing. I usually laugh it off, but sometimes I wondered if she saw something I didn't. My brother, Michael, a detective, isn't a fan of Mark either. At Emily's birthday party last month, I caught him confronting Mark. "I got my eye on you, buddy. Olivia might not see it, but I know your type." Mark snapped, "Back off, Michael. What happens in my family is none of your business." I broke up the tension, but a chill settled in my stomach. Still, I thought we were making it work. Then, last Friday, Mark dropped a bombshell. "Olivia, my parents want to take Emily for the weekend while we're at the conference," he said. I froze. "Mark, you know I'm not comfortable leaving Emily with them for that long." He wagged it off. "Come on, they're her grandparents." I was exhausted after a grueling work week, and against my better judgment, I agreed. Little did I know that decision would change our lives forever. We returned from the conference early. A panel had been canceled, and I was eager to see Emily. But when we pulled up to the in-laws' house, an eerie quiet hung in the air. Usually Linda had the TV blaring. "Hello? Anyone home?" I called, stepping inside. Silence. My heart began to race as I searched room by room. Then a faint whimper came from the bathroom. I rushed over, my hands shaking as I turned the doorknob. Nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. Emily sat huddled in the corner, her blue dress stained with blood, trembling. "Oh my God, Emily!" I cried, rushing to her. "Baby, what happened?" She just stared at me, wide-eyed and terrified. When I tried to touch her, she flinched, recoiling from me. "Emily, sweetie, it's Mommy. You're safe now." "Emily," I whispered, trying to soothe her trembling frame. "Can you tell me what happened?" She mumbled something, her voice barely audible. "What was that, honey?" "Grandpa's game," she whispered, then burst into tears. Just then, I heard footsteps. It was Mark, his reaction throwing me off. "Oh, it's just a nosebleed," he said, too casually, grabbing a washcloth and wiping Emily's face like it was no big deal. "Mark, look at her. We need to take her to the hospital." "Don't be dramatic, Olivia. Kids get nosebleeds all the time." I was about to argue when Robert and Linda rushed in, feigning surprise. "Oh dear, what happened?" Linda gasped, her tone barely convincing. "That's what I'd like to know," I said, feeling my lawyer instincts kick in. "Where were you two?" Robert stammered, We just stepped out for some groceries." "Both of you? And you left a 5-year-old alone?" Mark cut in. "Olivia, I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation. Let's not jump to conclusions." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I looked down at Emily and noticed faint bruises on her arms that hadn't been there before. "We're taking her to the hospital now," I said firmly. Mark grabbed my arm. "No, we're not. You're overreacting, as usual. We're going home." "Overreacting?" "Our daughter was covered in blood." "It's handled, Olivia." "Drop it." The drive home was tense. Emily sat silently in the back seat while Mark kept insisting I calm down. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. When we got home, I tucked Emily into bed. She clung to me like her life depended on it. "Mommy's here, baby. You're safe now," I whispered, fighting back tears. Once she was asleep, I slipped out of her room and texted Jessica and Michael. Whatever was going on, I needed help. I was going to get to the bottom of it. No one messes with my child and gets away with it. The weeks following that nosebleed incident were a nightmare. Emily wasn't sleeping, waking up from horrific nightmares, crying, "No, Grandpa, no." Every time, it shattered me. I started noticing things I'd missed before. How she flinched when Mark raised his voice. How she'd go silent at any mention of her grandparents. During lunch one day, I confided in Jessica. "Jess, I think something happened to Emily at my in-laws. Mark's acting strange, and Emily's terrified." Jessica grimaced. "Liv, I've always had a bad feeling about Mark. Remember when he accidentally broke your phone because you were out late?" I nodded, my stomach churning. "What do I do?" "Gather evidence. I have a friend who can set you up with some hidden cameras." That night, after Mark fell asleep, I installed tiny cameras around the house and slipped a GPS tracker into his car. It felt wrong, but I had to protect Emily. Days later, while reviewing our finances, I discovered an unfamiliar bank account. "Mark, what's this account?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He snatched the laptop. "It's nothing, just a work account." "Work stuff that needs $50,000 in cash withdrawals?" His eyes flashed with anger. "Stay out of it, Olivia." "I mean it." That's when I knew I had to dig deeper. I called Michael, filled him in, and he promised to look into Mark's background. A week later, Michael arrived at my office with a grim look. "Olivia, you're not going to like this. Mark has a history of domestic violence complaints. They were mysteriously dropped." I felt like I'd been punched. "There's more, isn't there?" Michael nodded. "Your father-in-law, he's got shady connections. I think they're involved in something illegal." That night, I waited until Mark was in the shower and checked his emails. What I found made my blood run cold. He and his parents had been discussing handling me if I got too nosy. Worse, there were unsettling mentions of Emily. The next morning, I called Linda, feigning innocence. "Linda, Emily's been having nightmares about some game with Grandpa. Any idea what that's about?" There was a long pause before she answered, "Oh, you know how kids are. Their imaginations can run wild." "Really? Because this seems like more than just imagination." "Olivia," she replied, her voice cold, "don't make a fuss over nothing. It's not good for the family." I hung up, my hands shaking. They were all in on whatever was happening. It was hurting my baby girl. Over the next few days, I devised a plan. I needed to get Emily out, gather enough evidence, and bring these monsters down. But I had to be smart. One wrong move, and I could lose everything. That night, as I tucked Emily in, I whispered, "Don't worry, baby. Mommy's going to fix this. I promise." I kissed her forehead, bracing myself for what was to come. The next morning, I woke up early, my heart pounding. I had to play it cool. One slip, and everything could crumble. Morning on, I greeted Mark with a forced smile. I was thinking, maybe Emily could have a sleepover at Jessica's tonight. Give us some alone time. Mark looked surprised but nodded. "Sure, why not?" I dropped Emily off at Jessica's, hugging her tightly. "Be good, sweetie. Mommy loves you." Back at home, I took a deep breath and confronted Mark. "We need to talk." "What about?" His tone immediately turned defensive. I laid out the evidence, his secret bank account, the emails, and Emily's bruises. His face shifted from shock to fury. "You've been spying on me," he snarled. "I've been protecting our daughter." I shot back. "What the hell have you and your parents been doing to her?" He lunged at me, grabbing my arm. "You know, see, you have no idea what you're messing with." I struggled, managing to press the panic button on my phone. "I know enough, Mark. It's over." His eyes widened as he realized what I'd done. Just then, the door burst open. Michael stormed in with a team of officers. NYPD. Hands where we can see them. Mark tried to run, but the officers quickly tackled him to the floor. As they cuffed him, he spat, "You'll regret this, Olivia. My family will destroy you." I watched coldly as they led him away. "No, Mark," I said, steady as steel. "You're the one who's going to regret ever laying a hand on our daughter." A year later, life looks very different. We moved to a new city for a fresh start. Emily's in therapy and thriving. Her nightmares have lessened, and she's smiling again. I'm a partner at a new law firm specializing in family law and domestic abuse cases. Now, I use my experience to help others escape situations like mine. Today, as I was preparing for a big case, my phone rang. Mark's new lawyer, probably fishing for an appeal. I deleted the voicemail without listening. That chapter of our lives is closed. Later, as Emily and I planned our weekend movie night with ice cream sundaes, I realized something. We're not just surviving, we're thriving. And those monsters, they're nothing but a fading nightmare. If you discovered a dark secret about your spouse or in-laws that put your child at risk, would you confront them directly or gather evidence first? What would you do differently from Olivia? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might help someone in a similar situation. If this story resonated with you, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. We share stories that shed light on important issues, and your support helps us reach more people who might need to hear them. Remember, in situations of abuse or danger, prioritize safety and seek professional help. No one should face these challenges alone.